Metal Gear Solid 3 stands as one of my favourite games of all time, and given its well-deserved critical acclaim, it's not hard to see why it's gotten an expanded re-release, a remaster, a port, and a remake, all within 20 years of its original release on the PlayStation 2. I played through Snake Eater so many times, and I happened to pick up Subsistence at a time when I didn't have consistent internet access, so I didn't know about things like the new camera and additional camos, and as a result, never played it, only keeping it as a collector's item. It's only when the HD collection dropped, which added 60 frames per second at the cost of Snake vs. Monkey, The Secret Theater, Duel Mode, and the Guy Savage minigame, that I started to look back at it and see what had been added, and one camo caught my eye. The grenade camo. Grenades are not a type of weapon I really ever use in Metal Gear Solid 3 outside of a few specific scenarios, and since Subsistence and onwards has a camo that gives you an unlimited amount of them, I was curious to see how far I could go with them. Take note that I'm still allowing the use of CQC, which has to be done by unequipping the grenade, and my logic behind allowing this was that if I'm close enough to slam someone to the ground, I could have already thrown a grenade of some kind at them to take them out, and if I were to do that, then I'd have to make sure that I didn't hit the guard with the grenade directly, or else he'd turn around and trigger an alert, which wouldn't be a very fun playthrough if that was happening constantly. So with this in mind, can you beat Metal Gear Solid 3 using only grenades? I get right into it by loading up a cleared save on hard, equip the grenade camouflage uniform, and check out the potential camo index. 60% in long grass isn't half bad, although I have no idea how well it works on deserts, dark areas, or anything of the sort, but we'll get to see that soon enough. While it's possible that I could have completely ignored the very first guard, I didn't want to risk him turning around during his patrol and spotting me while I'm trying to get to the second guy, so I play it safe and hug him into unconsciousness before waiting more than long enough to run up and choke out the second guy during a gap in their patrol routes. I'm in a bit of a tight spot for the moment as I have to choke the second guard out as a third one is slowly approaching me, but the nearby tree trunk comes in clutch, and I'm just able to take cover and finish the job before running up to the third guy and putting him down for a 3 count. Delino Vodno was the first area I expected to have some trouble with, since I'm sure we're all used to shooting the Hornet's Nest down and I wasn't familiar enough with the guard's patrol patterns to want to risk running in for a CQC slam. Luckily he goes off to the right, which gives me just enough of an angle on him to make my approach, and a very close shave with his cone of vision allows me to slam him. Pro tip: when a guard spots one of his fallen comrades, his sense of hearing effectively vanishes, and his cone of vision narrows significantly, making it very easy to put down one guard in a good spot and have another one patrol near him, which gives you a very long window to run full speed up to him and take him out as well. As long as you can slam him before he wakes his buddy up, then you'll be fine. I'm cautious with the third guard on the bridge, since I suspect that me rocking the bridge might cause him to notice that someone's behind him, and I'm just able to get to the fourth guard as he turns around for another CQC slam. I've made it to Rasvet for the first time, and I already don't like the amount of close calls I've had so far. 1 guard, 2 guard, 3 guard, door. Sokolov is rescued and it's on to Operation Snake Eater. The grenade camo comes in extra handy here because my preferred strategy to get through this area begins by throwing a grenade between the 2 guards that normally investigate the destroyed drone and trigger a caution. If you're playing on hard or above, then there'll be a third guard around the corner to the right who you can also take out to cancel the caution status that the stun grenade causes, which is generally the best option, or you can ignore him completely and carry the caution into Delino Vodno, which makes it considerably harder. Normally there's a grace period where if a guard notices you, there's about half a second where you can do something to take him out before he actually raises an alert, but this is gone during the caution phase and is a permanent thing on members of the Ocelot unit. Combine that with added guard presence during a caution, and I elected to wait behind a nearby tree due to getting very lucky with guard placement. Then when the guard who cleared the caution turns his back, I try something I don't normally do and take advantage of the trick where cooking a hand grenade also silences your footsteps to let me run up to him and slam him without him even turning around. I pulled the pin on this one a bit early without considering that it might explode in my hand, so I quickly unequipped it right before I got to the guard, which negates the silence footsteps effect right as I'm in his hearing range, but luckily I got away with it and slammed him as well. I don't normally like to take advantage of that since it's a bit too exploitative for my liking, but I was curious to try it since I'd never had before, and I won't be relying on it during this run, so don't worry about that. Starting the Ocelot unit fight with the worst stun grenade throw I've ever seen, I shamefully retreat under the floor and try to smoke grenade my way to the first guard, but he sees me through the smoke and gets me shot up a little bit before I'm able to take out 2 of them. A well-thrown smoke grenade allows for 2 more before a massive fumble on my part causes a second alert, but no worries. This is only hard mode, which still isn't even that difficult. Anyway, the sniper spots me as I'm on my way to tackle the guy in the corner, and a stun grenade directly to the chest sorts him out before I'm left with just the sniper. Taking cover to lose my alert, I slowly creep my way over to the building again so I can at least pretend that I know what I'm doing, up the ladder and up the sniper's ass where I slam his head into the roof. Force of habit causes me to shake down the Ocelot unit guards here for the 2 batteries and some extra goodies, including white phosphorus grenades and some good food. The only thing in the swamp that I really care for are the chaff grenades and the croc cap, so after grabbing both of those and feeding some Indian gavials— by the way, did you know that all 4 types of grenade cause gavials to explode the same way? I'm on my way to Bolshaya Pass South. I know my way around this area by now, so a weave through the claymores and giving a freshly caught Indian Gabriel to the patrol dogs allows me to get through the first half, then the second half is what poses a problem. The route that I'm used to is the right side where the splitter camo is sitting on a ledge, so I'm not sure what the best course of action here is. The guard catches a glimpse of me right before the guard that I usually deal with on the east side of the map notices the food I threw to the dog earlier. A smoke grenade in the middle of the group stops the nearest guard in his tracks while blocking line of sight for the two in the back as I manage to completely fuck up this easy roll through the electric fence, and somehow, he hears my footsteps but only turns around a little bit, allowing me to lay him down and take cover just as the smoke wears off. A guard who was called in by the caution arrives just at the wrong time, but I'm just barely able to get a few smoke grenades to cover myself enough to slip by. It's not particularly clean, but it did work and that's all I need. Bolshaya past base is very easy to get through if you don't care about the two items that would normally be here, so I stick to the left side crawling almost all the way through until 3 more guards decide to close in, and I quickly lay down a smoke screen before hightailing it to the Ocelot fight. Ocelot's only real counter to your grenades are rolling away from one if one lands near him, as well as what might be a grace period if you throw them too frequently. So my first thought to get around this when they stopped hitting every time at the end of the fight was to vary the types of grenades that I threw, starting with a white phosphorus grenade which seems to do the job. Now it's time for the boss that I was concerned about the most, the Pain. It didn't take me long to remember that he has a very effective countermeasure to throwing grenades, that being his swarm of hornets catching them and dropping them back on your head. This isn't always active on him, at least in phase 1, so I'm able to get him twice with it, but I couldn't find that sweet spot again. He just kept catching them and throwing them back, or it just had no effect. So rather than try to get that magic throw on him another 20 times, I elect to just break out the Mark 22 for this fight. I didn't want to, but I wasn't able to find any kind of consistent workaround for the Pain's protection against grenades, so I begrudgingly finished this fight the normal way. A bullet bee manages to tackle me before I have a chance to dive into the drink and installs itself in my brainstem, but I'm able to dig it out with my knife without causing any lasting brain damage. Apply grenade, season with Mark 22 and serve with headshot for a shameful but fairly standard win against the Pain. The Karat cap and brown face paint get me through the river, and I have a close call with the guard facing the entrance who whips out a pair of binoculars, but I'm somehow able to fumble and save myself from an alert. Only to botch it while trying to CQC a guard on the way in. I wanted to keep the amount of alerts I got to a minimum, and if I did get an alert then I didn't want to just run through every room like a games journalist or something, so after making it to the top of the stairs, I cook a guard to send a message to the others before taking my leave. My infiltration of Granity Gorky goes horribly due to another guard seeing me through smoke, which I'm thinking may have to do with the caution phase, but I can easily get around that by putting on the scientist uniform and having the guards just take me into the facility.
You're not getting away. Get back to work.
While I was hoping to put on the grenade camo and skillfully blast my way through the whole area, I fucked it up immediately and triggered an alert before even leaving my cell, so I decided to go back to the tried and true scientist uniform to make my way to Granin. Pro tip, if a scientist sees you inside a box, then they'll be stuck in an infinite loop of confusion, which allows you to straight up run by them. But as you likely already know, guards are much more savvy than that and will go into alert if they spot a box running around. My usual strategy of putting on a normal camo to hit the scientist with the Mark 22 is obviously out, and I was surprised to see the guard missing from the two scientists' rooms, so I'm able to get through here fairly smoothly. The same can't be said for my journey out of Granity Gorky and to the Fear, since I wanted to experiment with smokes and stuns to see if I could figure out if they worked if used in synergy. Plus, I was still a bit salty about being spotted through smoke for the second time, so I tried things a different way. I hate the fact that this worked. Fortunately for me, the Fear's stamina constantly drains, which makes it necessary for him to hunt for food, and I plan on exploiting this. My apologies for what I'm about to do to your eyeballs, but this fight was just pure stun grenade spam. I finished it without ever managing to figure out where to aim or how to space out the timing for throwing them at all, so yay me, I guess? The disastrous method that I used to try to get through the warehouse the first time inspires me to try a better strategy. starting by knocking on the wall and hiding in a box to wait for him to come up, then slamming him once he does. Another pro tip: if a guard hears 3 audio disturbances such as Snake knocking on a wall, then he'll run to investigate the noise instead of slowly walking, so I take advantage of that and slam him. I drop in and say hi to guard number 2, and the third one almost catches me, but not quite. My impatience causes another alert as I dart out from behind a tree like a dummy trying to move to the next one, but the area after is where the fight against the end begins, so I just bail right into that. You probably won't be surprised to hear this, but it turns out that grenades are only slightly worse against the end than a shotgun. I was here for over half an hour doing various things to try to speed the fight up, but the best way by far is to use headshots with the Mark 22 as well as the cigarette gas spray. So instead, let me show you a montage of the highlights.
No match for mine.
And it wasn't even the stun grenade that finished him off. Amazing. I pick up the Mosin Nagant for absolutely no reason and use instant transmission to warp to the mountains. What? They've done just about everything else in Metal Gear at this point. The desert face paint and animals camo will quite handily get you through the mountain areas with a ridiculously high 95% camo index, but I didn't really want to just crawl through the entire thing, so I was sure to take a pit stop every now and then. Smoke grenades may be a bit less than ideal here, since I do remember reading that the winds blow its smoke clouds away sooner than they dissipate naturally in other areas, as well as your stamina draining faster due to the reduced oxygen up so high, but I don't know either of these things for certain, so remembering that first tidbit as I run away from the guard that I just smoked into the next area, I'm almost immediately spotted by a guy who's only here thanks to my caution status, and I forget about the whole grace period and caution thing as I run up to a guard to try to slam him. It's at this point I decide, screw it, I'll kill people if I have to, so before this guard can spot me as he's coming down from the ramp, I toss a lethal grenade up to 2 guards on the side, which gives me a good angle on the last guy. One more slam to finish the area, and I've made it to the mountaintop. My own inattentiveness combined with Snake's compulsive need to stand up at slight deviations in the terrain angles causes another alert.
Who's that?
And unfortunately for me, I have to at worst be in caution or evil will refuse to tickle my pickle, so all I have to do is wait in an out of the way spot and I'm good to go. I usually like to roll up to the right, then across a bit to the left, and then off the cliff, but apparently I was feeling extra adventurous on that day, and took a different path instead. Absolute mad lad. Before fighting the Fury, I throw on the DPM camo because I always struggle with him on extreme, and I didn't imagine grenades only going much better, even if hard is considerably easier, so I break the grenades camo out again, and promptly get myself cremated on my first attempt. Not a problem though, I was trying to get a feel for the fight at close range since I'm used to sitting at the other end of the area with the Mosin Nagant, and I can safely conclude this: don't. The Fury jump scares me early in the fight, but I'm just able to duck behind cover in time, and I revert to my usual strategy of putting on a cardboard box while running away screaming. It's counterintuitive, but putting on a cardboard box actually prevents Snake from being set on fire and taking damage over time, which goes for both direct hits from his flamethrower as well as environmental flames, and it even puts out Snake if he's already on fire, which stops the life drain. I'm the real man on fire now. Literally. Round 3 starts and I start by bouncing a grenade off of his head, which will always be funny to me, and the Snake Eater camera comes in handy here for me spotting him, but only from one specific side of the arena. Now, while my rule absolutely was to use grenades only, I didn't say anything about not using New Game Plus camos. Yes, this is something I wouldn't ordinarily do, but then again neither is a grenades only run of this game, so I choose to allow it because they're my rules, damn it. I've never really used the fire camo before, but I'm not sure at this point if it prevents the burn status condition as well, so I keep the box on for a bit and I'm forced to switch back to my grenades camo as soon as I'm down to 1 stun grenade in my inventory. The pressure's on now as Phase 2 starts. The Fury will run around almost non-stop down each of the aisles, blasting flames down them periodically, and making it much more difficult to maneuver to get a good angle on him since he now has a tendency to just double back on himself and catch me off guard. We're both on our last legs, and I'm swapping to the grenade camo to toss one stun and back to the fire camo so it doesn't finish me off, but panic starts to set in as I'm running around with only my delayed audio cues to work with, and it's not going well. My fights against the Fury are either a piece of cake if I'm on hard or below, or he kills me a few times before I scrape out a victory on extreme or above with no in between, but here there's no reliable strategy that I can fall back on even without the grenades restriction, so I play as safe as I can to wait for the right moment. As we're both on death's door, the Fury counts down for his charge, and I think I might be able to intercept him with a roll to disrupt him, but he scared the shit out of my asshole with what looks like a screw attack straight out of Metroid that I've never seen before. Then that tension instantly switches to triumph as I score the luckiest win against the Fury of my life. Barrels of oil act like solid walls that guards can't see you through, so you can freely toss a grenade over them, or in my case, 2 grenades over them, and get some good angles on guards here and go right into Grozny Grad. I don't have the option to just shoot Rykov and drag him to the lockers this time, or shoot near him to make him run there himself, so my next thought is to lure some guards here to prop the doors open for me. Turns out I didn't need to do that because he can hear me knocking on the walls on the upper floor, so I can take advantage of that by knocking 3 times to make him come up to his fallen comrade, making sure not to pounce on him too early since he walks in a straight line directly towards me before turning the corner towards his downed buddy, and at that point I can get him. I thought you only had to have him in this section of the map, so I take care of that and make it to my least favourite part of this game, the Grozny Grad escape sequence. I don't have a reason to stick around this time, so I remove the fake death pill and transmitter before spinning Snake around in the cure menu to make him throw up, at which point Johnny will open the door to check on me and I can punch him out then shake him down for 2 very useful items. Instant noodles to fill my stamina so my stomach growling doesn't cause a guard to hear me, and smoke grenades to use in an emergency on my way through. A handy little strategy to get through this area that you can use if you don't have the cigarette gas spray is to hit the punch button with the single action army equipped to do a 3-hit combo. It has a deceptively long range, sends anyone hit by the 3rd swing flying, and if you're quick enough you can run up to where they land and hold them up, at which point they'll stay down unless another guard comes over and kicks them or you leave the area. Finally, not screwing it up this time, I'm able to smack the guards and hold them up, which lets me run past them with impunity, and yes, I realize I didn't use any of my 4 smoke grenades here, but I was only able to use 3 of them at most before I'd have to restock, since I don't have my equipment, and I have no idea where to get any at this point, so I went with the single action army approach. I for some reason chose to do the Sorrow's River the Spirit camo way rather than just drowning myself, so chalk that one up to force of habit, and then it's off to meet Eva so I can get my stuff back. She takes all of your food as well, which isn't a problem after a bit of fishing, and it's back to Grozny Grad, The Return, The Revenge, Tokyo Drift, Resurrection, the movie, the game. What I should have done here is thrown a smoke grenade between the tanks and just run past them, but I apparently felt extra sadistic today, so I thought, fuck it, let's incinerate the guards and some dogs and go on a rampage while I got the chance. One more guard coming in from the commotion blows up, and that quickly wipes my alert level, so I'm finally able to make it to the hangar. Nothing fancy here, just me throwing on the maintenance uniform and planting the C3 without knocking out any guards like I usually do, and it's onto the Volgan fight. You know, it might have been a good idea to sit prone in a corner to wait for my health to regenerate before I started this, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's only after this fight is over that I realize I did my usual CQC strats against Volgan after only throwing 1 smoke grenade at him and occasionally using chaffs, since I didn't want to throw away the half damage I take that the sneaking suit provides, although I figured since I've already failed this challenge a few times, another one won't hurt. I was here for a while tossing chaffs and trying to get my groove back with this fight, but I think my brain was fried at this point, so I made a lot of rookie mistakes and bad calls that cost me the fight a few times. Ultimately, I concluded that staying close is my best bet because I don't want to rely on my usual method of baiting out his lightning tendril by holding a gun out like I usually do. Eventually he goes down without me ever throwing a single stun grenade, so I hunted for a save to find out how good they are against him. I didn't have a nearby save on the HD versions, but I did on PS2, and it turns out that they are ridiculously effective on Volgan, so I'm just going to hope that the same applies to him on higher difficulties, but he just has a ton more health. I managed to make it from the start of this fight to the very end in a minute and a half by just throwing grenades around. The bike chase is pretty standard for the most part, except I forgot to put on the Cold War camo and kept the sneaking suit on instead, which isn't a huge issue. It's just that picking up the Cold War camo has been trained to be my brain's cue to put it on, so I just completely missed it. Partway through the bike chase, there are some faraway guards that I have to incapacitate to progress, but even with the hardest throw I can manage, it's not enough to get the guy on the rooftop or the 2 on ground level, so I break out the M1911A1. In hindsight, stun grenades might have worked if I threw enough of them to possibly wear down the guard's stamina even if they're not in range, but I'm not sure if stuns actually work like that since I've never thought to try. Much to my surprise, using grenades when the Shagohod is actively attacking me on the runway actually sort of works because all you have to do here is survive for a certain amount of time, and the sneaking suit helps to cut down on damage taken. I definitely can't reach the C3 with grenades, and I didn't think to use the RPG-7 in time for this segment, which would totally count because they're rocket-propelled grenades, right? The Shago Hod has to be taken down the normal way, and it didn't even occur to me to use stun grenades against Volga Hod with how mobile he is, but I do know that chaff grenades can be used to disrupt the tracking of his missiles. Another rocket to the treads and an SVD bullet to the head gives me the win. Don't worry about the missiles heading towards me, I'm sure it's fine. I do try to use grenades to kill the guys on hovercrafts, but it doesn't work, and the same goes for destroying the log in our way. The next area is a bit better because it's somewhat feasible to throw grenades ahead of the goons chasing you and have it blow up under them as they drive over them, but it's still not easy, so the Cold War camo goes on and stays on until the EVA escort section. Fortunately for me, my usual strategy here involves the use of 3 smoke grenades, which works on all difficulties, and this camo lets me spam them, which I do to see if my PS3 can handle it. Good job, I'll phase you out as soon as we get Demon Souls on Steam. In the second last area, I did the dumb again and let the guard go trying to throw him to the ground, but nothing a healthy dose of war crimes can't fix. I find out the hard way that 2 grenades cause the guards to insta-alert much like stuns, so I will now cause everyone in this area to explode. I think I did more damage to the wildlife than the guards by the time I was done, but I got through it in the end, and Eva joins me on the floor of the jungle as I regain all of my health, which I expect that I'm going to need for the boss. Especially when I have starts like this. She manages to disassemble my stun grenades, but that just gives me more of them somehow, and given that they don't seem to work on her outside of my very first throw with them, makes me think that stun grenades only on the boss isn't going to happen with the 10-minute time limit, so I have to get through this one with CQC. Emotional damage obtained. I refuse to fire the revolver that has the shot in it because I guess it was something different than my usual pick the one on the right to keep it for New Game Plus, and that brings us to the end of another challenge run. That was fun. I knew this run wasn't likely to be possible because of things like the pain, but I was certainly curious enough to try it, and none of the other downloadable camos provide a benefit that make them and them alone viable to center a challenge run around. At least none that I could see. There's definitely a few mistakes I made during this run, mostly from me not even trying all the different grenades against the bosses as the game went on. Or maybe I just made a video out of this run instead of deleting it as a way to preserve my win against the Fury because I'll never do anything that cool again. I also briefly put the Infinity face paint on because I was going to combine it with the sneaking suit, but that seemed a bit too cheesy for my liking, so even though I took it off immediately, it did still count as a special item used. Regardless, I'll never turn down a chance to play Metal Gear Solid 3, and it's likely that I'll come back to this game with other less awful ideas for challenge runs in it, so I do hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.